Well, people are always asking me about tech trends or global health, but today I want to talk about something that's been bubbling up in the news, and it's pretty disturbing. It's this whole mess with Donald Trump and the Epstein files, where his dark past is surfacing at the absolute worst time for him. With all these revelations coming out, right, as he's trying to solidify his power, it's like a storm that's been brewing for years finally hitting. I've followed this from afar because, Epstein's network touched on powerful people, and transparency is key to trust in our systems. But what we're seeing now is threats, cover-ups, and a real push to bury the truth. Let me walk you through it step by step because the details are important and they paint a picture of how far some will go to protect secrets. And honestly, as someone who's dealt with my own share of public scrutiny, I think we all deserve the full story, especially when it involves justice for victims and accountability for the powerful. Multiple Republican Congress members have said that their lives have been threatened by Donald Trump's Department of Justice in connection with their demand for transparency around the release of the Epstein files. We've heard now from Thomas Massie, Republican Congress member from Kentucky, who spearheaded that discharge petition. He said that the Trump DOJ and the FBI threatened criminal prosecutions against his staff for pushing through the discharge petition. More on that in a moment. Marjorie Taylor Greene had previously put out a notice that if something were to happen to her and that she were to be killed, that there are powerful men who want to go after her. And she says that she's not suicidal and that it would not be by way of suicide that she would die. And she said it would be because essentially some powerful person connected with her request for transparency would be behind it. We also know about the threats to the lives of these survivors as well. And we're also seeing what the DOJ has done to people within the department who have discussed the Epstein files. And there was an example of one individual, senior DOJ official who worked in the Witness Safety Coordination Program. And after O'Keefe, that reporter who does the sting operations interviewed this DOJ guy. The DOJ fired him right away for talking about the Epstein files, and a lawsuit was just filed on behalf of that DOJ agent. So let's go through these facts and let's talk about what's happening here. And this is all happening, by the way, at the time that Bloomberg got a response to their FOIA request from the federal courts, which also showed the scale and scope of the cover-up taking place inside the DOJ and FBI. And what like $1 million was basically spent on overtime back in March over a very short period of time in connection with redactions of the Epstein files. The removal of stuff from the Epstein files. Let's break this all down, shall we? So Thomas Massie was on InfoWars, and he talked about the threats that FBI agents and Kash Patel made to his staff, which Massie believes is probably illegal, and said that they would initiate criminal investigations. So the Trump DOJ, FBI saying that they were going to do criminal investigations into Massie here. Play, because he was pushing forward the discharge petition, play this clip. Also, I'm going to say this here on camera because it's important. One of Kash Patel's staff threatened my staff with a criminal investigation if we didn't straighten up and play ball. I was going to ask you about that, but since you brought it up and I didn't, I'm bringing it up. Okay, you brought it up. And so like a criminal investigation having nothing to do, he said it was going to be a fraud. We're going to investigate one of your staff for fraud. And he told another one of my staff this: if you guys don't straighten up, if you want to play hardball, if this is how you want to play it or something like that, this member of your staff is going to get criminally investigated for fraud. A very specific threat, right? And that had just happened. So I told Benino, I said, one of your guys is threatening my guys with an FBI investigation. Yeah, if we don't do what you want, and he said, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. because even he understood that was not a good look. It's probably illegal, right? So the fallout to that is the FBI employee who threatened my staff. I have to tell you all this, by the way, Stephen, I have to tell all the listeners this, because this is the context in which I'm worried for the whistleblower if they're willing to retaliate against a congressional office which has speech or debate immunity and a lot of other protections. They may be willing to retaliate against a whistleblower. And previously you had Marjorie Taylor Greene post, I am not suicidal and one of the happiest and healthiest people you will meet. I have full faith in God and Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. As a sinner, I am only saved through his grace and mercy. With that said, if something happens to me, I ask you all to find out which foreign government or powerful people would take heinous actions to stop the information from coming out, not only about this issue, but because of the truth that I have been speaking, the people understand what I am saying. Then later she talked about the death threats that her business was receiving, that she was receiving from the Trump mega base, as Donald Trump basically called her Marjorie Trader Brown. Okay, let's talk about the Epstein survivors, the threats that they've been getting. Here we hear from Annie Farmer, one of the victims, survivors of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. Here she says how it wasn't the gang just procured the children for this sex trafficking ring that Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are now covering up, but she was threatening to the survivors as well. Play this clip. She didn't just procure girls and women for Epstein, but she herself participated in their abuse. I think that's an important thing for people to understand. And then she also, made threats. She made threats to my sister, to our family, when it was clear that my sister had reported her. And so I think that to be told that suddenly she's being brought to the table as a potential source of information when she's previously been charged with perjury by the government is very confusing and unsettling. Now, here was the, reporting here by O'Keefe and his organization, O'Keefe Media Group. You see it right there. And I'm sure there are a lot of issues where O'Keefe and I disagree, no doubt about that. But he was able to film this, and it spawned the DOJ firing the individual who was on this recording. This individual has since filed a lawsuit against the DOJ for violating his First Amendment rights. Here is what was captured on the O'Keefe tape, just to remind you, and then we'll talk about that lawsuit. Play this clip. Oh, those files do exist. Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of Bible. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal democratic people in those files. I think they visited that Maxwell person. Yeah, and also in Badge, I got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BP policy because she's a convicted sex. Their operator or something. Keep it shut. That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of Enforcement Operations, Joseph Schneid, telling a stranger about the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Schneid, who works at a high level inside the Department of Justice, goes on to comment on the inconsistent statements, special treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell, and the blatant backtracking on promises of transparency. And what do you do for working? I work for the Department of Justice, okay, in there like 23 years. I'm an analyst. I'll be acting deputy chief of our office for a few months, starting next week. I work closely with like all the federal law enforcement agencies, the U.S. attorney's offices, the prosecutors and stuff. The thing is, it's interesting because I do deal with so many agencies like the prisons, the Marshal Service, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay, Mark Zed, the lawyer, has been on the Midas Touch Network. Today we filed a First Amendment lawsuit against Bondi and the Department of Justice for illegally firing DOJ Deputy Chief Joseph Schmidt. they said it's an illegal firing because it was without any due process. These were personal comments of public interest made on a private date that turned out to be a targeted O'Keefe operation. What you got there. All right, let's turn to what's going on from this. By the way, Bloomberg has been doing really good reporting lately, not just on the Epstein stuff where they got the 18,000 emails from the Epstein estate. Remember, they also have done incredible reporting on that phone call between Yuri Yusakov, Dmitry, Kirill Dmitry, Steve Witko, which showed the United States basically just acting as an agent of Putin to try to destroy Ukraine. So this is from the Bloomberg report right here. Jason Leupold, great reporter. He says, new exclusive, the FBI turned over dozens of emails to me in response to my FOIA request that provides a behind-the-scenes look at the discussions involving the review and redaction of the Epstein files. So here's what the DOJ is talking about from their Information Management Division. We are all prepared to receive boxes tomorrow as New York agents are traveling to WFO in the morning, and we'll arrive in Winchester where they will start photographing and we will start scanning and processing the physical files. Once I see the volume, I'll have a better estimate of processing times. Although I suggest we do a rolling delivery to further demonstrate the FBI's commitment to delivery and transparency. Tomorrow, I'll have a recap of historic FOIA cases. So what they were saying back in like March, let's do a rolling production, meaning let's start getting the documents out back then, which we know they didn't do. Jason Leupold writes, the records I got reveal the number of hours the FBI devoted to the project, which required some agents to work nights and weekends. The FBI paid personnel from various divisions, including counterintelligence and international operations, 851,000 inches overtime for working on the Epstein files between March 17th and March 22nd. According to the documents, FBI personnel clocked in a total of 4,737 hours of overtime between January and July. Pause right there. So Trump calls this a hoax of 4,737 hours of overtime. So if that's the overtime hours, right, you want to maybe multiply that by what multiple do you want to use? We could have been talking about what 100,000 hours were put into this, by the way, which if you were a lawyer who was billing an hourly rate, say of $500,000 to $700,000, $500 to $700 an hour, which is a median hourly rate right now, mid-market or so. What are you talking about? Tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that could have been spent on that. Of that, more than 70% of the overtime occurred in the month of March alone. While personnel reviewed the Epstein files, the documents show the emails revealed the special training given to Epstein personnel working on what it called the Epstein Transparency Project. In some instances, they referred to it as the Special Redaction Project. They were calling it the Special Redaction Project. Think about that. Redaction, removing stuff. The training entailed PowerPoint, slide presentations, and video instructions on how to review the files. Man, the Special Redaction Project, oh my God. In an email on March 10th, FBI personnel from the Office of General Counsel and the Bureau's Information Management Division discussed pending FOIA requests for the Epstein-related records and digitizing and redacting physical files and the Bureau's commitment to transparency. Bureau personnel also reviewed videos. According to an April 15th email, one of the videos was from the New York City jail where Epstein was found dead a month after his arrest in 2019 on sex trafficking charges. The DOJ publicly released 11 hours of the prison video in July. And remember, there were parts of that were missing. Here's an FBI email on the Epstein-related videos the Bureau reviewed for release, which includes Ghislaine Maxwell's security footage. And it says, "Hi, Shannon. Great speaking with you as a follow-up to your email conversation. please see the below information. All Epstein-related image video review has been completed regarding, then it's the case number, and it talks about search warrant execution photos, FBI interview videos, Maxwell prison security footage, time-lapse video footage from an office, street surveillance footage, aerial footage from the FBI, search warrant execution, police interview videos, marketing videos, lots of stuff right there. So while this was happening as well, you had a federal judge in New York, Judge Angelmir. He put out an order now to the DOJ saying, okay, with the Epstein Transparency Act now becoming a law, I want to know if you want me to release grand jury testimony, which is disfavored significantly. Let me know what you're releasing so it's not duplicative. Angelmir, the federal judge, is playing chess while the Trump regime is playing checkers, because they're like, we want to turn over the grand jury transcripts. He's like, okay, well, that's usually not allowed under Rule 6E or the federal rules of criminal procedure. What do you have? List for me all of the categories that you believe you have that falls under the Epstein Transparency Act. Because why would I produce it if you have it in your possession and you've been ordered to turn it over anyway? So if you have it, turn it over. So in response to that, the DOJ had to send this letter. Dear Judge Angelmir, the government respectfully submits this letter in response to the court's November 25th, 2025 order. The government responds to the court's questions below to the best of its ability, and then they list in response to what the court requested these categories. Grand jury subpoena returns from internet service providers like Google, Instagram, Microsoft, records obtained from various government agencies, Bureau of Prisons, U.S. Virgin Islands divisions, NYPD computer checks, Delaware Division of Corporate Records, FA records, police reports, school records, search warrant returns, email, cloud, ISP searches, photograph scans, copies of materials obtained during physical searches, electronic searches of computers, telephone and other electronic devices, materials produced by law firms, including firms representing victims, arrest reports, booking records, post-arrest statements and photographs, and or copies of materials seized incident to arrest, materials from related civil litigations, recordings from depositions, transcript of depositions, photographs and videos of relevant properties and locations, Epstein properties, Maxwell residence, immigration records, records related to online purchases from online retailers, materials obtained from the Palm Beach Police Department and the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, including reports, photographs, and videos, forensic examination reports related to electronic extraction of various media, copies of photographs and other materials voluntarily produced by third parties, including victims, postal and courier records, materials produced by the estate of Epstein, driver's license and DMV records, reports and notes of interviews of third parties and victims, and certain communications related to the same. Oh, wait a minute, DOJ, didn't you claim that you didn't have all of these emails from the Epstein estate because you said they were not responsive and they never turned it over to you? Which is why you said the House Oversight Committee was the only people to ask, like, oh, the Epstein estate cooperated with the House Oversight Committee, Democrats, but they never gave us the documents. BS. BS. You're the DOJ. You could have asked for it from the Epstein estate. And wait a minute, you did. That's in your file. So you've been lying about that all along too, which is why you are threatening these Congress members right now and threatening to prosecute their staff members in order to try to stop all of this from coming out. But folks, I think I gave you all a pretty good freaking roadmap there of where some of the great documents, the powerful documents, are going to come from. We'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MidasPlus.com. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. He dismissed it outright, saying, her life is in danger, who's that? And I don't think anybody cares about her. That's cold, especially since she was one of his biggest loyalists. Now, she's talking about a mega civil war, how Trump destroyed her for putting America first by voting to release the Epstein documents. It's like the whole thing is unraveling at the seams with Green reporting threats linked directly to Trump's rhetoric. And Massey, he's out there saying the same Trump's team threatened his staff with fraud investigations if they didn't drop the petition. This is the kind of pressure that's making Trump's dark connections to Epstein surface when he can least afford it, right? As he's trying to consolidate power. Democrats are even filing police complaints over Trump's posts, calling them threats or sedition, like Rep. Chrissy Houlihan, who confirmed her office filed one, treating Trump's words as serious dangers. It's not just Republicans turning, the whole political spectrum is reacting to this. And it's not just politicians. The survivors are still dealing with this shadow. Annie Farmer's words hit hard. Maxwell wasn't just procuring, she was abusing and threatening families. The fear lingers, and now with these files, it's like opening old wounds while new threats emerge. Epstein victims are expecting death threats to rise as the U.S. release nears, according to reports from Al Jazeera, where a group of survivors said they've been receiving threats, and they anticipate more as the files come out. Then there's the O'Keefe sting that DOJ official fired for spilling about redactions favoring Republicans, and now the lawsuit by Mark's aide claiming First Amendment violations. It's all connected, showing a pattern of silencing anyone who touches this. Bloomberg's FOIA digs up how the FBI spent over $851,000 on overtime in just a week in March for redactions. That's the special redaction project, as they called it. Thousands of hours, millions in costs, if you think about it, like legal billing. And the judge, Engelmayer, forcing the DOJ to list all they have from grand jury returns to prison videos, estate materials. Everything exposes the lies. They claimed no Epstein estate docs, but there they are in the list. This cover-up is massive, and Trump's DOJ is at the center, threatening Congress to keep it buried. You see, Trump's past with Epstein isn't new court docs, mention him, knowing about the girls, flights on the jet, all that. But now, with Congress pushing the Transparency Act, it's timing that's killer for him. Republicans like Massey and Green, once allies are turning because of this. Green's resignation, its fallout from Trump labeling her a traitor over the files and other issues like H-1B visas. She's saying the threats are from the MAGA base, unleashed by his words. Even Trump rejected her claims outright in interviews. But the pipe bombs, the harassment, it's real. And Massey on InfoWars detailing how Kash Patel's staff threatened criminal probes. It's probably illegal, as he said. This is Trump's dark past ties to Epstein, the sex trafficking ring, the cover-ups, resurfacing when he's vulnerable, dividing his own party. Victims like Giuffre cleared him in some depositions. But the broader network, the threats to silence it all, that's the shadow hanging over him. A lone lawmaker voted against releasing the files, Rep. Higgins, who has a history with threats against gang members. But the bill passed anyway. Trump says he would sign it if Congress passes, but his U-turn came after Massey forced the issue, and now the rift deepens. The whistleblower fears are valid if they're willing to retaliate against Congress with immunity. What about regular folks? The DOJ firing that deputy chief after O'Keefe's tape, where he talked about redacting Republicans and special treatment for Maxwell. That's the system protecting itself. The lawsuit calls it illegal, no due process, just because he spoke on a date. And Bloomberg's emails show the FBI's commitment to transparency was all talk, rolling productions never happened, just redactions. The special project focused on removing stuff, not releasing, videos from Epstein's jail, missing parts, Maxwell's footage all reviewed but held back. This is Trump's DOJ spending taxpayer money to hide his past at the worst moment as the bill heads to him for signing. Trump attacked MTG and Massey, calling MTG backing perhaps the worst Republican congressman in our history, stupid person named Massey, all because they supported releasing more Epstein files and putting America before other interests. It's wild. Trump hates Massey for confronting spending, and now this. Massey lives independently on a farm in KY, can't be bought, a libertarian constitutionalist. MTG and Massey teamed up on the Transparency Act, and Trump, who spent most of his life as a NY Democrat, doesn't want people embarrassed. Both have supported Trump 90% of the time, but disagree once, and out come the insults. Folks, this is why transparency matters. Epstein's files could expose powerful people, and the threats show how desperate some are to keep it dark. Trump's reversal on signing doesn't change the mess. It's his connections fracturing MAGA. Green's out, facing assassination fears. Massey threatened, it's ugly. But the roadmap's there. Subpoena returns from Google, Instagram, Microsoft, my old company, prison records, depositions, all listed. The DOJ lied about not having estate docs. They did. This is the cover-up unraveling Trump's dark past, his terrific guy comment on Epstein in 2002, banning him from Mar-a-Lago, later now amplified by these threats. Reports from Politico show Democrats filing complaints over Trump's posts, seen as sedition, urging troops to refuse unlawful orders. Trump said Democrats should be arrested for that.
Aaron Cecil Smith from Houlihan's office confirmed the complaint, treating threats seriously. Al Jazeera reports victims getting death threats as release nears. BBC on the lone no vote. Higgins. DW explains Trump-Epstein links. NBC on Trump telling Republicans to vote for release, saying we have nothing to hide, but after initial resistance. NYT on the story not going away. Green saying Trump's attack subjected her to threats. At a news conference, she called for investigations. Newsbreak on the rift deepening after the bill and Green's resignation. Massey forced Trump to submit to releasing Epstein-gate, but expect minimization via judicial roadblocks or national security claims. That's disturbing, implying government involvement with pedophiles. Posts call it Trump's hysterics over files he promised but worried about names in. Half his appointees insisted on release, including his son and VP. Massey's win pushed Trump over the edge, attacking MTG and ran for siding with him. Trump kicked Epstein out in 2007, reported him, but Massey implies more Zionist angles in some posts, but the core is threats if staff didn't give up for Trump and elites. Try reading What's Out Massey, platforming Haley Robson, Epstein pimp, but no list except victims. Lisa knew nothing. Trump's attacks because of files and America First. He flipped out, more critical of Massey and Green than Graham, who disavowed him. Priorities misplaced. Massey assured Epstein headlines for months instead of mega wins. But Massey confronted Trump on spending can't be bought. MTG treated with cruelty as single mom politics better for men. Green made and broke promise to survivors but intimidated by Trump. Quiet piggy. This dark past surfacing now. Trump's threats, dividing party, victims fearing more as files near. So dig in, stay informed, question power. If this resonates, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts. Let's push for truth together.